This may take a little while. We have two fuel filters on our bus. This is a 5.9 Cummins. This has an engine mounted fuel filter, and we also have a frame mounted fuel filter / water separator. So we'll get into more of that in a little bit. Another item to check on your bus is your air filter. At least check it and make sure it's in good condition, and if not, replace it. What you'll want to look for is a giant canister such as this on a front engine model. You'll find them typically down here, like especially for Cummins. And what we'll do is we'll just loosen this wing nut, and that outer cover comes off, and there's a second wing nut inside that retains the filter itself. So a few turns of this, and our filter is free. And this is a relatively clean filter. You can see the one spot where the dirt is accumulated, but overall it's not in too bad shape. We will replace this as it's will do by age. Replacing your fuel filters on our bus, and probably most other, is actually a two-part process. You have your engine mounted fuel filter. This is the filter that feeds fuel right to your fuel pump and then to your injectors. So you want to make sure that stays clean. The second part we'll get to when we complete this is underneath the bus on the frame rail there is a second fuel filter / water separator. So what it does is it removes any water contamination into your fuel, filters the fuel, and then sends it up here to a much smaller micron rated fuel filter. So microns are obviously how big particles are. You have a much larger micron rated fuel filter on the frame, which is pulling from the tank, and then that weeds out any big particles until you get up here to a much smaller micron. These are usually rated at 5 micron, 3 micron, somewhere around there. So the first part is to remove the lid. So for most 5.9 Cummins guys, you'll probably need a 1 1/8 inch socket or a very large wrench. I highly recommend the socket option. Okay. So this is a canister style fuel filter. So you're going to want to let that drain just a little bit. And then just grab this and it pops off. So you retain the lid, and this is trash. You'll notice this actually is not too awful bad. It doesn't look too bad, but this is what it originally looks like. So you can see the difference. There is some dirt contamination in there, but it's not any large particles, thanks to our pre-filter down on the frame. Okay, so the new filter simply will pop right in place. There's an O-ring here. You get a new O-ring. So we also need to pull the old O-ring off. This is easy as that. Install the new O-ring. Like so. Make sure it's seated all the way around. And simply reinstall. Now when you push this back in, sometimes you may get a little bit of fuel run over the top, which is okay. It's just gonna smell like fuel for a little while. And we take our 1 1/8" socket, reinstall it, and tighten it till it seems good and tight. Part 1's done. Now, time for part 2. As you can see, this is our frame mounted, and it even says fuel filter water separator. So what, like I said previously, what this does is this draws directly from our fuel tank, which is right over there, and it does two things. It has a water separator, which is this portion down here, has the bowl, and also is the primary fuel filter, the first one before it goes to the other one that we just changed. So the first thing we're going to want to do, obviously, is disconnect the wiring, because this will actually give you a warning light when when it senses water in the fuel, which obviously you know is not a good thing. So first we will want to disconnect that, and then release this little peacock here, and that will drain our fuel filter. That way we won't make such a mess when we remove the filter itself. As you can see, there's a little tint of yellow-green. That's diesel fuel, so it didn't look like we had any water in there at all, so that's good. Alright, so it looks like we've drained our filter. Let me just go ahead and tighten this back up. And we will get our handy dandy trusty filter wrenches, and obviously put it on in the appropriate direction. Hopefully this will go better than our oil filter, since we have some room under here. And obviously this one was put on really tight. And obviously I'm turning this the wrong way. That was actually just a test to see if anyone would catch that. I'm sure we'll get comments below. And don't be concerned if you wind up damaging your filter in the removal process, because it's going in the trash if we get it off. Let's leave that open and make sure we have all the pressure relieved out of there. Get up closer. Let's take a quick break. So we're gonna go to plan B, which is an old timer trick I learned. There we go. And it's moving. Now that we broke the suction loose on it, let's try the regular, real method. Welcome back to this episode of the Most Impossible Fuel Filter.
Piece of cake.
So here we have the replacement fuel filter, and as you can see, it's in much better shape than the one we just removed physically. That's a very good point on why not to over tighten a fuel filter, or any kind of filter, oil or fuel or anything. So what we have here is a full-on replacement. It's not like the one mounted on the engine. It is contained inside, and it comes with 2 O-rings. So what we have here is our reusable bowl, and we'll put that on last, and it comes with its own O-ring, and then we have an O-ring that goes between the fuel filter and the housing, as you can see above. So we'll install this, and we'll obviously just take a quick wipe down, make sure we didn't leave any O-ring particles or any dirt to contaminate our seal. I will actually go and dip my finger in a little bit of this diesel fuel and wet the O-ring so it will slide a little bit and not bite so hard on our housing. And we just spin it back on like so. Now that is hand tight. We do want to put a little bit more on than just that. But as you can tell, you can easily put these on too tight. That's about a quarter turn past hand tight. So now we'll get our reusable bowl and remove the old O-ring out, which has turned almost into a hard plastic over time. We will take our rag and just wipe out any contaminants inside. This one's actually not too bad. It's a good sign that our fuel tank is in pretty good shape. If you do have a lot of contaminants inside here, you may want to take a look at your fuel tank. Okay, and we will reinstall our new O-ring. And again, I will take a little bit of diesel fuel just to wet the O-ring. Okay, and this simply threads on to the bottom. As you can see, it's tight. Reconnect our wiring harness. Tighten our drain cock. And we're ready to go. All right, let's go over a quick recap. After replacing the radiator, we installed new radiator hose. So right there in the middle, you can see a new lower radiator hose. And that connects to the lower radiator hose connects to our transmission heat exchanger. Also transmission cooler. Then it leaves the transmission cooler and runs through the metal line to the bottom of the radiator. We also replaced the overflow tank hose, which as you can see goes under the engine and back to the bottom of the radiator as well. As many of you know, this is your heater core. This is what makes hot air come through your dash. We are going to eliminate that, and while doing so, we have eliminated a good 20-30 feet of heater hose. As you'll notice, the hoses would come out of here as they're now cut off. They would go down through those holders and up underneath the bus and to the back of the cylinder head. Now this is a 5.9 Cummins, so most of you with the Cummins will have this probably similar setup, and we have the valve now turned off. I'm going to cap that off as well just to be on the safe side, and the other end of that wound up below again into our heat exchanger, and also has a valve and is now capped off. If you're not planning on reusing your heater core and your dash heat, you can save a lot of money on heater hose. Another part of your cooling system is the thermostat. What it does is it controls the temperature at which the coolant flows through your system. So typically right here on the block, this is the thermostat housing, and 3 bolts, and it is removed and you find your thermostat. Like I said, this one is really nasty. There's signs of rust in the system. This comes where the radiator hose then connects to the radiator. So this probably needs to be replaced. So there is a temperature, kind of like a sensor built into this, that allows the coolant to flow by once it reaches a certain temperature. You can get various temperatures. They're set at 180, 190, 210. We just went back with a factory stock replacement. So we're going to replace this nasty thing with a brand new one. Now sometimes they can look slightly different. That's okay, because these are used across various models, but they all do the same thing. The biggest thing is just make sure it's the same diameter and that it fits. So we're going to clean this up a little bit first before we reinstall it. Okay, and as you can see, it comes with a new seal that seals between the housing and the block. This was really nasty. So even you guys with low mileage buses, always check these items, because sometimes it's even worse for a vehicle to sit than it is to be used on a daily basis. Okay. Place our new thermostat in. Make sure it's set appropriately in the seal. Always loosely install bolts by hand first before you put any kind of automatic tightening device on. Snug each one down first. Alright, and then obviously we'll check for leaks when we get everything reinstalled and back operating. By the way, this little tool is by far my most favorite tool I've ever owned. I've been working on vehicles since before I was old enough to drive, and this is about the most amazing thing you could own. So it's a cordless electric ratchet. Highly recommend pick one of these up. Milwaukee, you did good on this one. Maintenance is a very important topic that easily gets overlooked. We hope you like this series of videos that shows how you can perform your own maintenance. Please give us a thumbs up if you do, and also click subscribe because we have some new experiences we would love to share coming soon.